Ugh, I wish I owned a car. It'd make weekend day trips, seeing the fam, and last-minute errands so much easier.
You don't need to own a car for that.
Really?
Check out Zipcar. They let you book cars from your phone 24/7. It's super affordable because you only pay for the time you need, plus gas and maintenance are included.
Yeah, but bet it costs more in the long run.
Nope. Members save hundreds a month compared to car owners.
Okay, I'm checking them out.
Use the Zipcar app to book a car near you in minutes for a few hours or a weekend. Join instantly at zipcar.com. Zipcar. You don't need to own a car to have one.
There's never been a better time for football fans to join the huddle with BetMGM. Sign up today and place a $10 pregame wager on any pro football team to win. If any player scores a touchdown in any pro football game, you'll win $200 in free bets regardless of your wager's outcome. Just use bonus code JERSEY200 when you make your first bet. Get on the field and find out why nothing beats a win with the king of sportsbooks. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com and use bonus code JERSEY200 to win $200 in free bets if any player scores a touchdown in any pro football game. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. New Jersey only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
What's the worst thing about sports? That's right, all those unnecessary breaks in play. But you can make them all better by using Grubhub. Grubhub has every food you can possibly crave, from national favorites to local spots. Grab your first order from the Grubhub app or visit Grubhub.com. That's Grubhub.com. And now Amazon Prime members get a year of Grubhub Plus for free. That's 0 food delivery fees from your favorite restaurants. Visit goforgrubhub.com/Amazon for terms and details. Go for Grubhub.
Hello, one. Hello, all. Welcome to 100 Words or Less, the podcast, where we talk about independent music, cover people who are creating it, putting it out, documenting it in some capacity. And today's guest is definitely one of those people. His name is Casey Crescenzo. He plays in a band called The Deer Hunter. He also played in a band called The Receiving End of Sirens, or many people refer to them as Trios. And he has had a very prolific career within independent music. And I wanted to have him on the show, so that's what we did. And I'm excited to bring that to you in a few moments. First of all, you can always email the show, 100wordspodcast@gmail.com. I love to correspond with people, guest ideas or, feedback like, hey, why don't you have this person on? And then, I can tell you why. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out, and also spread the word of this show, because that's the best way that you can, support this whole thing by telling your friends, telling people who need to hear about this show, because, I do this for fun and it's very enjoyable, but, the more people that listen to this thing, the cooler it is and the better it is from that perspective. So I would appreciate any, positive reviews that you give to the show at large. So Casey was a great discussion. We talked a lot about his origin story, because, he just seemed like, very proficient in regards to the way that he played his musical instruments in an age where that maybe wasn't the focal point of many of us that were creating music at that time. So yeah, it was just a great chat. So here's Casey, and I will talk to you, of course, after the episode is over.
Well, we're packing in the pitch and niche like it's a lotto. Now take a seat so the show can start. And will you welcome these works of art? Isn't she beautiful?
Our mutual friends, Mr. Brian Southall. I've known him for 150 years when he played in For Dire Life's Sake. Yes.
Nice. That is some time.
Yes, he was. I worked at Century Media Records, and he was actually trying to get For Dire Life's Sake signed to Century Media. But anyways, it was one of those things I just was really struck by, him and his musical ability. And then, he told me about, Trios, when that was all, coming together and everything like that. And
right.
It was one of those things where it's like that time, the early 2000s, was so interesting for independent music, because, people were actually starting to get good at their instruments. And I know that sounds so basic, but they're prior to that, whatever, punk and hardcore, indie rock, whatever you want to call it, like, yes, there were technicality aspects to it, whatever. If you're looking at hardcore, it's like, Converge, Dillinger, that sort of stuff. But like,
it was almost like there's this period of time in popular music, not to cut you off,
please,
but just to
please.
like put a little asterisk where like the exhibition of hair metal kind of, was answered by grunge, and that idea of like, it doesn't really matter how fast you can play your instrument to express yourself. I think that was such a like the evolution of music and musicality in a pop sense is so short so far that everything up to that point was kind of like new, like there wasn't really a hair metal point before that. So everything was new, but then there was this big answer to this musicianship, this exhibitionist musicianship on a pop platform that got, I think, smashed by grunge. And then it's like been sort of, for what felt like probably a decade or so, like this weird in between of actually being proficient at your instrument. And you know what I mean? Like it's somewhere between like Wes Borland and the guitar players from Korn.
Right.
Like there was this like ping ponging in, I mean, I'm only really pointing out that, but then you also had people like Mike Einzinger. But I just think you have this period of time where proficiency in your instrument wasn't really sought after by the listener.
Yeah.
And then that early 2000s felt like there was a lot more technicality being infused into that, more what I guess would be called emo, or just emotionally driven, angsty, less proficient and more textural kind of musicianship and songwriting,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think it was like, because the notion of, being like good at your instrument in relation to, punk or hardcore, indie rock, whatever you want to call it, independent music, it wasn't like cool. Like as long as you're able to put stuff together and, have the aggression and have that sort of like visceralness of the live experience, that was the driving force behind it. But then once people started to show that like, oh no, like I can be good at the instrument that I play and still exist in this scene and not be just like, oh yeah, this is like, total masturbatory guitar stuff or whatever,
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the weird things for me was that when I got really proficient at my instrument when I was younger, and I kind of stepped fully away from that, but I didn't really know about music like my first real band, the Receiving End of Sirens. I didn't really know about that kind of music, like, heavier, more technical, without being metal kind of music. And it's just kind of funny that the thing that actually got me into that band was this little EP of music that I showed them that really didn't show like any technical proficiency at all. It was all like electronic, ambient, soft kind of music. And then I think the thing that did really get me in the band was shredding one day at Daddy's Junkie Music in Boston in front of the bass player. Just like childish masturbatory harmony on top of some really technical part he was playing, or at least at the time it seemed technical. And at this point, I don't remember what it was, but just, it's interesting. I guess I'm just saying it's interesting how the proficiency and like technical ability, when you pass the point of just being able to play a song and you're in that point where you're choosing between a part or exhibiting your ability, when you're writing, it's like, do I do something flashy here or something technical or something like that? It's just interesting how much that wavered in my life, in the music that I was listening to and the people that I came in contact with. It was like bouncing between groups of people that did not like, it's like there was a notes per minute kind of limit that you could really listen to.
Sure.
And that was more in the bands like Bright Eyes and stuff like that not like it was dumbed down or anything, but it was like songwriting versus exhibition, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And then, I mean, it's like looking at that time frame as well, where you have a band like, Minus the Bear, where it's like, clearly the lineage of, tapping guitars from like, Botch, and, the through line is there. But it's so funny because then it's like, you know, you look at a band like Thrice, who, you know, were doing that obviously in the early 2000s as well. And, you know, they make no bones about the fact they're like, oh yeah, we were just ripping off Botch and Soilwork or whatever. And it's like,
yeah, you always hear about that though, with those sort of like pillar bands. There's always, like, Cave-In is a band that is so instrumental to so much about heavier music since they came out. Everything from like drum to like the production side of it, obviously, like they hugely influential. But the amount of people that know a band like Cave-In versus a band like Thrice, you know, it's totally. There's always those bands, and I think obviously I think Thrice is deserving of it. I just think it's interesting. There's always those pillar bands that you find out about, and you're like, oh, this is the band, and you can see. And you could probably you can obviously trace it back of who that band was for Cave-In.
Mm-hmm.
But Cave-In is this band that seems like this branching point, when it's like it kind of provided a really cool roadmap for heavy bands to do things other than just be heavy.
Yep,
you know,
totally.
While still being like ferociously ballsy when they needed to be.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so yeah.
And say, I mean, just like the idea of like standing on the shoulders of giants, like clearly, you know, that's all that happens with the, you know, building of, you know, your own musical projects and everything else. But then it isn't until, to your point, where something kind of breaks through on a, you know, a little bit larger level, that idea becomes original to the person who is consuming that art, and is like, you know, if you've never heard a tapping guitar, and then you start to, you know, hear, you know, Trios and Thrice or whatever, and then you're just like, oh, so these guys invented it. And then like, that's, you know.
Oh, for sure. And then what's even funnier is whenever there's a situation like that, and then somebody maybe goes back and listens to like Eddie Van Halen or something like that, you know, like someone who might have some legitimate claim to being instrumental in tapping, and they might think, oh, that just sounds cheesy, right? Or like, oh, that's just not for me. But then, you know, these bands, it's kind of the way I feel about this. There was this weird transition where, like, I've always listened to, I mean, not as the main music I listen to, but within the music I listen to, I've always listened to stuff like, I guess, shreddier guitar players like Steve Vai and Joe Satriani. And I really liked Steve Vai for a long time, still do, for composition and just like this baton passing of Frank Zappa. Oh man, I completely lost where I was going with this, but it was so purposeful. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so for so long it was just like shreddy guitar was so like, there was, even within the kind of heavier, like the music that I was playing, or bands like Thrice, like there's still a notes per minute limit. There's still like the kind of technicality that people like to hear in that music, you know, like there's a difference between sort of more technical riffs or music like Dragon Force. Like, I don't know what that would be now, but
sure, there
was this weird transition that happened. And I remember it was a few years back when we brought out the band Sean to tour with us. And now, I mean, we would probably be lucky if we got a tour with them. I think they
the roles have
exploded.
reversed. Right. Yeah, for sure.
Which is a running theme in my life that I have totally gotten used to. Like, after the third or fourth band that I watched open for a band I was in, and then just crush on like the international stage, I was like, this, just get used to it. Like, this is a lesson you're gonna have to learn.
Totally. Yeah, they're like, this is fine. I know that the music is cyclical, so I get it. Yeah, you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So it was just so interesting to me that like I was so used to exhibitionist music kind of falls always into the prog category. Like, whatever it is, if it's not jazz and it has a lot of technical proficiency, displayed, it usually leans into prog. Like if it's prog metal or like there's some prog influence in that. And Sean was one of the first bands that I saw, and I know there's a few bands like this, and there have been some bands before that kind of do that similar, like, if a computer could emote music, that's what it seems like to me. Like, if a computer discovered emotions and then immediately tried to write a piece of music, it's like that's what that kind of music feels like to me. But it was so interesting that this extremely proficient, shreddy exhibitionist music was so welcome by such young, energetic, seemingly not the kind of people that would listen to shreddy exhibitionist music. Like, it was the first time I saw that occur in almost like an EDM kind of reception, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Like dueling, shredding guitars, but the vibe of it was like, it was a party. I was so not used to that.
Yeah.
So there's this whole, in the last 10 years, building new wave of just the fastest guitar playing possible, like shit that doesn't register with me.
Yeah.
And not in an emotional way, like in a technical way. I can't figure it out. Like watching their hands and stuff like that. Like, I think when we were touring with them, I tried to learn one or two riffs from them. It was the kind of thing, like 20 notes into it, when we were only like a second or two into the riff, I'm at
capacity.
I just had to put the guitar down. Just like, no, this is not for you. You're not capable. Just watch in awe.
Our good friends in Rockabilia want to outfit you for the summer. Use this code PC100 words that gets you 15% off your order, and they have so much rad stuff on sale right now that you need to visit. They have face masks for all of you who are practicing the social distancing, which frankly should be everybody. And when you're grocery shopping, what better way to walk around the grocery store than a cool municipal waste face mask? Why don't you do that? Okay, but no joke, Rockabilia is the real deal. All officially licensed stuff. They pay the bands out. None of this horrific bootleg stuff that you find online. And they're an independently run business that ships out of the Midwest. It gets it to you really, really quick. And I just love this company so much. I can't tell you how many times I've ordered from them, and just frankly how great of a company they run. So if you are looking for band merch, you need to look no further. Go to rockabilia.com, and again, use the code PC100 words. That gets you 15% off your order. And thank you, Rockabilia.
Man, I wish I owned a car.
Why?
Day trips on the weekend, seeing the fam, hitting up the vintage markets, last-minute errands.
Oh, you don't need to own a car for that.
What you mean?
You don't need to own a car to have one.
Okay.
Yeah, just check out Zipcar. They let you book cars from your phone. It's super affordable. Gas and maintenance are included in your membership, and you only pay for the time you drive. Nothing else.
Wait, really?
Yep, and you can book by the hour or day.
Bet it costs more in the long run, though.
Nah, members actually save about $700 a month compared to car owners.
$700 a month? Wait, so this isn't your car?
Nope. I use the Zipcar app to book one for a few hours or a weekend. It's super convenient.
Join instantly at Zipcar.com and book a car near you in minutes. That's Zipcar.com. Zipcar. Have a car without owning one in the city.
There's never been a better time for football fans to join the huddle with BetMGM. Sign up today and place a $10 pregame wager on any pro football team to win. If any player scores a touchdown in any pro football game, you'll win $200 in free bets regardless of your wager's outcome. Just use bonus code JERSEY200 when you make your first bet. Get on the field and find out why nothing beats a win with the king of sportsbooks. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com and use bonus code JERSEY200 to win $200 in free bets if any player scores a touchdown in any pro football game. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. New Jersey only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Check out the podcast Good Assassins, the unbelievable but true story of the greatest spy of World War II. Season 1 was a top 10 hit with millions of listeners, making it one of the top 20 new podcasts of the year. In Season 2, a mysterious agent is strategically dismantling the Nazis' violent grasp on France. They don't know her name, but they want this woman dead. Not only is she leading her own resistance factions, but inspiring others. The Gestapo sends a devious double agent to hunt down the limping lady before she threatens their entire push for Western Europe. But Virginia Hall was tougher and more resilient than anyone expected. I'm Stephen Talty, an author and a journalist, and from Diversion Audio, this is the dramatic story of a different kind of spy. Listen to Good Assassins on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, it is interesting. I've noticed that as well, where it's the and I think it has to do too with the fact that, you know, the general concept of music, especially as you're starting to, you know, explore your own taste and starting to get into your own stuff. Once you kind of go down the rabbit hole of everything that, you know, we were just talking about, as far as like the notion that your brain as a 14, 15, 16-year-old is, you know, kind of processing stuff, obviously in very fast time, but, you know, is usually attracted to kind of the more, for lack of a better term, like simple, visceral music, you know, like, yes, of course you can get, you know, attracted to stuff that's like way over the top and way crazy. But yeah, I find it so interesting in the same way of what you're talking about, but I could tell we could talk about that for another 150 minutes, but that would be, that we could just start our own separate podcast about that. but kind of focusing on you as a person, you know, I'm going to presume that you were kind of born and raised in the sort of East Coast Boston area, or am I completely off base?
You're understandably completely off base.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, totally. I mean, the only I'm trying to think of how to say this. I grew up really in the suburbs of Southern California. I spent like 8 to 18 there. And then at 18,
where specifically in the SoCal? Because I mean, I live in Newport
Oak
Beach.
Park.
Oh, yes.
In Oak Park,
dude.
Yeah,
very familiar
like
with
the
that.
suburbs.
Yeah, well, that's just outside of Ventura, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there was definitely a ton of shows in the Ventura area, and I played a lot of shows like in that general area, like Kung Fu Corner and a bunch of other places. But yeah, that was like in Thousand Oaks. But yeah, that area is great.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There was one really popular, very tiny club to play in Southern California that wasn't in LA. Maybe it was in like Northridge. I don't remember where it was, but it was just like one of those. There it is.
There you go.
I
You're welcome.
thought about that in so long.
Yeah, dude.
Oh my God.
That was like
wow.
Yeah, that was like just, you know, kind of not in the valley per se, but it's like, you know, up the whatever, the 101, 405, and yeah, gosh, I can't even remember the city that was located in, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So strange, but yeah, so I grew up in, it was like my parents moved around, I think almost every year until I was 8. And for a good number of them before I was 8, they moved around within Los Angeles. So we were living in like, I think Culver City, and my dad worked in Marina Del Rey. And then maybe 1990, 91, they moved to the suburbs, and that was, I don't know. I mean, like it was an awesome childhood. It was super musical. There was just, my dad had a studio in the house forever. Like that's all I've ever known, is there being a section of your house devoted to being a studio. And they would make music together, my mom and my dad. And that was kind of like between the music they would listen to, like Weather Report, The Police, The Beatles, a lot of different music. Between that and the music they made, it was just like, I don't know, I had one of the I can't imagine how my childhood could have been easier, given the fact that I was so interested in doing creative things and so had such a strong aversion to higher schooling. Like to be in this family feels like I don't know how I could have been any other way, and I can't imagine having it any easier than I did growing to 18.
Sure.
And then it was just very strange.
Right.
Yeah.
What processed all of the, I guess the movement from your parents? Like, were they, you know, just like what were they doing for a living? And like, what did the makeup of the house look like? You have brothers and sisters and stuff?
Yeah, I have one brother and one sister, and my brother is the drummer of my band. And my sister is an artist and she's more like a film artist, but has also sang on some of our records and come out to a few shows and sang as well. Yeah, so when I was leaving home, it was right around the time, I think my brother had been gone for either a year and a half. My sister was just getting into high school. And it was the kind of thing where I was, that's right. I was playing in this band. This Well, I'll save my own judgment for the band, but I was playing in a band that was basically a new metal band called Delusion.
I was literally, to interrupt your train of thought, I was literally, because like I saw that, I did my fair amount of research on you beforehand, because being located in the area where you were located in, it was always that weird thing where sometimes people got thrown into bands, and like once I read about Delusion, I was like, oh dude, like Casey got thrown in at the deep end with this thing.
Well, it's really interesting. Like it's such an impactful moment of time in my life. The process of like, I was playing in my own band with my brother, and we had this really, really, I mean, he was talented, but he was just an amazing person, like guy we really loved hanging out with and playing in a band with. And it was at just band practice one day, and he told me there was this band in a few towns over that was auditioning guitar players, and also, guitar players who could play keys. And I was like, well, do you want to go like audition as a duo? Because I'm not really a good piano player. You're a great piano player, and I'm a good guitar player, but I'm not going to be a double threat. Like maybe if we go and we audition together, it'll be cool. And we auditioned, and he didn't get it because they already had a keyboard player and we didn't know. And I really got along well with the singer and the guys in the band. And it was the kind of thing where I was just excited about the concept of playing music more professionally. And that's just like with a band of people whose lives revolved around that band. Because the band I was playing, it wasn't like our full time thing. It wasn't like we were putting all of our effort into making this band a successful thing. It was just, we had a band. And I had like enough music that I was interested in that had crosstalk with the music that they were interested in. Like I loved Incubus and the Deftones, and I loved that sort of, I guess I loved a few bands like that, but I didn't really branch out in too many directions because I felt like there was like a few bands that were the cream of the crop for me of what the new metal music had to offer. And that's where those bands kind of, I can still enjoy them thoroughly. Like I would still put on White Pony right now and really enjoy it, or Make Yourself, or Science from Incubus. But so there was enough there, and in talking with them, there was enough of like, they also really liked funk, and they wanted to, it was more like they were influenced from that era of Incubus and stuff like that. And I really got along well with the guys, and I'm making all of these apologies right now for why I would have played in this band.
Sure.
But really, it's just, I don't know if it mattered to me what kind of music they were playing, because I always tried to make whatever I was doing in whatever band I was in a really good extension of me, so that at least my instrument and the thing that I was contributing felt like something I could own and something that I was like proud in a sense to play, like not some guitar part or thing that I just had a deep hatred of. I would usually be very thoughtful in the way that I would put my parts together, but at the same time, it just wasn't really music that I liked. And it wasn't music that I would put on and listen to. And it wasn't music that was being designed out of this, like, what is the music I want to hear kind of mentality. And then I found out that their A&R guy, well, they had two A&R guys. One of them was, I think his name's Kaz Yutsumura, who they told me was responsible for signing Tool. I don't know if that's his name or if that's what that person did, but those are my memories. And then the other A&R person was Jack Osborne from the Osbournes.
Sure.
And
he was on the prowl for like, a good 5 to 6 years. It's like he would just, show up at random shows, and then everyone would be humming. Everyone would be like, oh my gosh, there's Jack Osborne. He's trying to sign a band. It's like, oh geez.
I remember. And the best part about it was like, as soon as I spent time with him, all of that hope vanished. All of the, okay, there's like, it's just looking back on it now, it's just like a bunch of children pretending. He was like, what, 15, and he was an A&R guy at Sony.
Totally.
And I think I was like 17, and the singer I think was 18, like so young. But what's funny about it, looking back, I was so bold and stubborn that I was like, okay, I'll produce this EP we're doing for the label. I had never really produced anything before, and we barely had spent much time in the studio as a band. But that was what we decided to do. And in that process, Jack brought over the film crew from the Osbournes, and they filmed part of an episode at my house.
Amazing.
And it gets even better. Jack Osbourne called me, I think I might be paraphrasing. At the very least, I know he called me a nuisance. I think he might have called me an asshole. And I was watching the episode. I think I've told this story maybe a few times, so I don't know if I've ever told it on a podcast before. I've only done a few, but I was watching the episode. Like, our singer called me and said, "Hey, that episode that they filmed at your house is airing tonight." And it was like, awesome. Let's watch it together on the phone. And he's on the phone. I'm on the phone. We're just watching. Gets to this part where it's Jack and our singer having a phone call. And all they're doing is talking about how big of a problem I am because I won't, like, they manufactured this weird drama that I wouldn't turn over the masters for this EP, when it was just like they were asking what the status was of it and if they could hear final mixes. And I was like, we're not even done recording it, let alone mixing it or anything like that. And they turned that into this bit of drama for the week. And it was such a surreal thing being on the phone with the singer when he did not, for whatever reason, he didn't think that that was going to make its way onto the show. Like, of all the things that had happened in that week, I would think he would be able to intuit that a, like, sort of dramatic conversation with the singer of this band is probably
that's
top of the,
right. That's reality show fodder. That's exactly what they're going to do.
Exactly. And maybe this was early. I mean, it is pretty early looking back on it in terms of modern reality TV. But yeah, so that was awkward. I called up Jack Osbourne, and he made all of these funny little sounds about how sorry he was. And then and
that was your first band. Yeah.
And that was my first band, and we played but the reason I actually ended up leaving the band, and I'm happy that I did this, obviously, but we played a foam party at some college.
Oh my gosh.
And
it was like you saying foam party just brought me back like a good 15 years where it's like, oh my gosh, I remember that being a thing.
Yeah, it's so we were playing a foam party, and the needless to say, all of the equipment that I had was covered in soap bubbles and shit. And after we made no money that weekend, then when we were on a phone call, me and the singer, I was like, I don't really want to do. Oh no, he called me saying we have another, like, a frat party to do this weekend. And I was like, that's not really for me. That's like, I'm not interested in playing college parties or anything like that. Like, I just don't see how this is a thing that will result in us sort of achieving anything we want to achieve, or the way that we want to achieve it. And I just love saying this. He said to me, he was very upset with me, and he said, maybe music just isn't for you. And I just said, yeah, I guess maybe music isn't for me. I sold all of my guitars at the time, all of my amps, which for some reason I had more than I do now, like a lot, as a 17, 18-year-old kid. Sold them all and started doing video editing, and figured, okay, I guess music's not for me. And and that was my first band.
And that was the rap. And then, you didn't do anything afterwards. So it's a good thing you listened.
No, the best part is that he reached out to me years later, and I have no qualms with this person. Like, I loved the time that I spent with him. He's hilarious. He's kind. He's super, super talented. But he his dad was on BJ and the Bear, by the way. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Greg Evigan was his dad.
Wow.
Also on my two dads. But I don't know why I'm bringing any of that up. But he sent me an email like years back, and he just said he was on Warped Tour, and he was sitting in a circle of some people talking about my band, and that he was really proud of what I had done with it, and that he loved the music, and just really sweet things that you don't expect to hear or receive after being told music isn't for you. I would completely understand somebody like, that's a very big move to come back and say something that kind and relay a moment that sweet. So
yeah, you would know, you would hold no ill will towards a person like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that, obviously, since your experience with that, and kind of like, starting to, like you said, the idea that, whatever, the schooling after a certain amount of time was something that you were not going to be interested in whatsoever. I guess the path kind of forward for you was always just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm just going to pursue this music thing, whatever that may mean. And, I'll be fine. This isn't going, when I say I'll be fine, it's like, well, yeah, that's a sliding scale there. But it seemed like that has always been kind of your North Star, as it were.
Well, yeah, I think that the reason I always thought I would be fine is because I've really never had, this makes it sound like I'm ungrateful for where, the successes that I have enjoyed, but I've never had the goal of, like, I was always very afraid to play in front of people when I was young, and I would always force myself to do it so I could kind of get over that fear. And as rewarding as live music is, the really rewarding thing for me is being creative. So when I left home and I wasn't really in a position to devote all of my time to music because I was, spending all of it just trying to make rent, I didn't really think, like, I was a cashier at Urban Outfitters. But I never thought that I was failing at my goal, if that makes sense. I just wanted music to be in my life in some way, and I wanted to be serious about it when I spent time on it. Like, I take it seriously even when it's funny to me.
Right.
But so that's just the goal, and because of that, not achieving some massive celebrity status is not going to rock the boat. Just like, when we had the pleasure of getting a song on this pleasure of getting a song on radio once or twice, I would, like, that doesn't rock the boat too much either. Like, I try to not let those things influence whether or not I feel like I'm living, a fulfilling life.
I am very excited to tell you about a new record from Cro-Mags, released this June 19th on Mission 2 Entertainment. And I mean, if you don't know who the Cro-Mags are, I really think you need to get out a little bit more, because, they are hardcore legends. It's their first album in 20 years. It's called In the Beginning, and it's a really, really good record. We're going to listen to a little bit of one of their tracks. It's called From the Grave. It actually features Phil Campbell from Motorhead on it, which is unbelievable. So let's listen to a little bit of that. And also So how about that? I really can't believe we're talking about a new Cro-Mags record now in 2020. It's unbelievable. So you can find that record called In the Beginning on any of your favorite streaming providers, or you can go to mission2entertainment.com and find some cool packages in regards to merch and vinyl and all that other fun stuff. So yes, go check out the new Cro-Mags record called In the Beginning, everywhere, out now.
You, the one listening to this ad. What do you think you're doing? Cooking when you know you don't want to? Thinking about canceling taco night? settling for leftovers again. Not on my watch. Just go for Grubhub. It is the easiest and the best decision you'll make all day. Plus, no dishes. It's what you deserve. Just go for it. Download the Grubhub app today.
Man, I wish I owned a car.
Why?
You know, day trips on the weekend, seeing the fam, hitting up the vintage markets, last-minute errands.
Oh, you don't need to own a car for that.
What you mean?
You don't need to own a car to have one.
Okay.
Yeah, just check out Zipcar. They let you book cars from your phone. It's super affordable. Gas and maintenance are included in your membership, and you only pay for the time you drive. Nothing else.
Wait, really?
Yep, and you can book by the hour or day.
Bet it costs more in the long run, though.
Nah, members actually save about $700 a month compared to car owners.
$700 a month? Wait, so this isn't your car?
Nope. I use the Zipcar app to book one for a few hours or a weekend. It's super convenient.
Join instantly at zipcar.com and book a car near you in minutes. That's zipcar.com. Zipcar. Have a car without owning one in the city.
There's never been a better time for football fans to join the huddle with BetMGM. Sign up today and place a $10 pregame wager on any pro football team to win. If any player scores a touchdown in any pro football game, you'll win $200 in free bets regardless of your wager's outcome. Just use bonus code JERSEY200 when you make your first bet. Get on the field and find out why nothing beats a win with the king of sportsbooks. Download the app or go to BetMGM.com and use bonus code JERSEY200 to win $200 in free bets if any player scores a touchdown in any pro football game. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. New Jersey only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Sure. Well, the notion of just like, building your life around something that is important to you, and regardless of the, kind of ups or downs in it, it's just being like, well, that's part of this, and like, yeah, you try not to vacillate too high or low. You kind of want to try to keep it in the middle, but like, yeah, building your life around that. And like you said, giving yourself the space and the ability to be able to creatively pursue the thing, as opposed to, okay, I must do this next, so I need to shut off this portion of my life because I don't have time for it anymore, or whatever, all the trappings of, a quote unquote normal life. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think it did, over time get there though. Like it transitioned to this thing where, okay, I need to shut out every other portion of my life. And that's something I would say over the last like 5 years, and certainly since becoming a father, I've had to really alter about my approach. Is I can't do these, 6-month lock yourself in a room and work on something bouts anymore, because there's too many other things that I care about.
For sure.
It's an interesting change. I guess that just happens as you get older,
Yeah, for sure. There are more demands on your time because, these other things that have equally as much meaning as you following the creative process, to be like, oh yeah, like that's selfish. If I just bail for 6 months on my family, like that's not reasonable.
It's true. And I will admit or concur that it is hard not to feel like the time that I take to be creative at this point is selfish. Like there's sort of like I don't know how to explain it, but there's like a fuse, basically a burning fuse of like, I can kind of keep myself from feeling guilty about working if I keep myself active enough. It's weird. But the second I stop and think about, like, the second I have dead space and I'm sitting in front of my computer working on a song and I've been like 15 minutes sitting in silence thinking, that's when I start to feel like this is greedy. This is like being very greedy with my introspection, like really giving it time. Like sitting here inactive for that long seems selfish.
Sure. Yeah.
And I know that's like the life of a creative person, but I will say, like, it's a strange addition to the myriad of guilts that I feel. It's a strange addition of like, well, this is also the thing that supports the family, but why does it kind of make me feel guilty?
Right.
Or indulgent, overly self-indulgent to be doing it.
Sure. Absolutely. And you've mentioned this in, kind of other interviews and stuff like that. Like once you moved out to the East Coast and obviously you started to play with trios, it seems like you always, kind of enjoyed touring kind of at large. Of course there's, again, highs and lows in that. But, did you kind of take to the idea of touring, right away, or was that something that you kind of had to learn to kind of get into the motion of?
That was definitely new. Like with my most active experience being in Delusion, and really that band at most doing the 3-day weekend tour. Tour wasn't even like a possibility in mind. I was so unaware of the greater DIY world of touring and VFWs and church basements and that whole world that I don't know how active it still is, but I would imagine not so much. But it was completely new to me. And I am so grateful for the way that I grew into touring, because it started as absolute shit, like the shittiest, most discouraging shit imaginable, where you're just playing for the other bands or some crazy racist dude at the bar that did not know you were there to play that night.
Yeah. Y'all pretty good.
Yeah. And then you're like, I don't know if I want you to think that.
Right.
Or there was, there's so many stories that just blur together of, it's also a really peculiar time where you're traveling around, and like the thing for bands that were in the realm that we were trying to be in, like, and this was new to me too, like the fashion side of being in a scene band back then was such a strange thing to me, about dressing a certain way, or about how tight your pants were, or any of that stuff. So
right, the aesthetic portion of it, where it's like, okay, there is no matter how large or small the show, like, we need to keep our aesthetic consistent.
Oh yeah. And it's just so funny. Like, it's really hard for me at this point in my life not to look back and just laugh at the things that mattered so much to this group of people, myself included. But yeah, touring was the kind of thing that we immediately got out and we started booking ourselves and playing around the country as much as we possibly could, and, funding our own EP, and kind of just trying to get it in as many hands and to as many ears as we could. And that's when Pure Volume was like this great method. Pure Volume and
powerhouse
MySpace.
tastemaker. Yeah.
It was just, there was a cookie cutter method that didn't feel like a cookie cutter method yet, of making an entire group of people aware of your music. And it was, there's better tools now, but there's so much more music now, and there's so many more people who can do it so much, better than I can as far as utilizing those tools. But at the time, it was fresh enough that if you as a band had even sort of a little interest in either HTML or just, I guess, tech, the internet, anything like that, there were a lot of really cool new tools, and we utilized them as much as we could. I forget the one for touring. I forget which one we used for touring, but the first tour that we did was with this band Orange Island. I don't know if you ever.
They were on Iodine Records. Why do I remember that? That's just because that's the way that our dumb brains work.
Well, yeah, we were with, I want to say it was them, and I want to say this band Lux Courageous, or maybe it wasn't Lux Courageous. I think Lux Courageous was when we played with As Tall as Lions.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, it was the first year and a half that we toured. I think we would always do really well in New England, and you would always have to play at the beginning and the end of a tour, just to send yourself off with some hope, and to mend the broken hope that you have at the end of the tour.
Yep.
And so we would just kind of do these regional things, and then eventually, we got a more, I guess, stereotypical kind of team going with a manager, booking agent, label, and then it was a bit of, I guess, just autopilot as far as what most bands do at that point, like put out a record, try and tour for 18 months. But I think before we got to record 2, I was gone. So we didn't see what the second record cycle would be like.
Right, for sure. The only reason I ask about the touring aspect is because, it seems like you just as an outside observer and obviously not having a direct conversation with you before this, that you are sociable, and, the idea of touring was something that you could step into and be that person, like not the center of attention, but be that person.
Oh no,
yeah.
No, God, no. I was so afraid, and I was in a band of such attractive people that like such attractive people, all of them wearing women's jeans. And it was just like being with guys wearing women's jeans. It's like a slap in the face when you can't find even your size in men's jeans. It's just the strangest thing. It's not an actual slap in the face. Like, they're not doing anything to me. I just mean being the guy who shouldn't be wearing women's jeans in the band of men wearing women's jeans is a strange perspective to have. Because all you're yearning for is being able to wear those women's jeans.
Sure.
And and I think I don't know, but I was never very comfortable on stage. I was always like really self-conscious. I get tremendous stage fright and anxiety before I get on stage, to the point like where for some reason my response is it just like flattens me out. I get sleepy, super sleepy, and start asking everyone questions about whether or not anyone's going to like the show, or if I'm going to be able to sing or anything like that. And I'm prone to getting sick on tour. A lot better now, but it was pretty bad back in the Receiving End of Sirens.
Got it.
But I always wanted to. Like, I did always want to, and I see, this sounds like, I guess, hollow, but I see the benefit, not just in the sense of selling records or tickets, but I see how it's a net good experience for me and for what it is that I'm doing. Even though I enjoy and find more fulfillment in making music, all of my anxiety aside, like, I still really do appreciate and enjoy touring. It's just, it seems to have its grasp in a few different anxiety spaces in my mind that it flares up. But I think everyone's got something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, when you are able to get up there, show your art to people who, appreciate it, who have, willingly showed up to the thing, or, unwillingly are watching you, play in front of a band that they like, but then they actually.
Let's hope unwillingly.
Right.
I hope it's just a group of people who don't want to be there, and then they're like, it was worth it.
Yeah, that
would be great.
Totally.
That wasn't so bad.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. That wasn't so bad. But yeah, but having that sort of, visceral feedback and that immediate nature of like, oh yeah, that's either, a good thing or a bad thing. And like, because I think that, and I'm sure you can identify with this, I think the real tragedy when people are putting out art is that it doesn't inspire a reaction one way or the other. And that's the thing where it's just like,
oh absolutely.
Yeah.
Indifference is like, it's like antimatter.
Yeah.
It's the worst. It's that feeling when you show somebody a joke or a video and you're like, you're going to love this. And then you watch their reaction and there is none. It's just it's that sinking feeling of like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess it's wanting to be understood, I guess, is part of it. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Once you started to do, your own thing with the Deer Hunter and, start to build, this band that has turned into a project that has turned into so many different iterations over the years, which is awesome because, you've been able to kind of, follow the sort of creative forces that are, in your head and try to get it out there. It's never been simple. And I think that, and when I say never been simple, not only the trajectory of where you're at now, but just the sheer notion of your ambition kind of maybe outweighing what your, own personal ability is at any given juncture. You've always seemed to right. Like,
I can tell you that's exactly where I am right now.
Okay.
It's like I thought I was building a mountain and someone cut the bottom and flipped it on me, and now the point is just stuck down in my stomach, and I'm looking at all of these things I thought I could accomplish, and I'm not finishing any of them, and I'm reaching, like I've definitely reached whatever it would be, maximum velocity or something right now. I feel like a hydra. It's a strange time. So yeah, my ambition absolutely dwarfs my ability in any direction on any topic or any interest. It's a troublesome quality, or flaw.
Well, I mean, but to not even counter that point, but just the idea that like you have this notion and focus, and like whether or not you're able to achieve 10% of it or 20% or whatever, you still march forward with either that naivete when you're younger, or just that this is still something that I want to put out there. But again, it's always kind of been that real central idea of like, you are shooting for, whatever Venus, but you're landing at the moon, and that still is okay, and it just, I don't know. I guess there's no real question looped up into this.
No, I would agree. That's the hope though, is, I think that I think it kind of somehow abstractly ties to the exhibition issue that I feel like, because I definitely, going back, feel there's this, I don't know, number of notes per minute problem that I can't get past when I compose. And I know this sounds totally tangential, but basically just that I hope that what people hear is the thing that I hear when I tried to make it. Like, I hope that what they're listening to is what the thing I do does to my own imagination, because I have definitely never hit the mark perfectly for myself. I know that it's impossible to hit the mark perfectly in general, but for myself, even, I've never, a good example is Andy Hull, when the way that he talks about his past music to me and the way that I talk about my past music to him, I'm almost ashamed of everything I've made up to this point in time. Always. Like, it's a perpetual state where I'm really excited about the thing I'm working on, and then as soon as it's done, I'm almost ashamed of it. And I talk to him, and he's so excited about the body of work that he's created. He's just able to look at it so differently than I am, and what I might consider flaws and what he might consider, what I might call a flaw in my work, he might call, I don't know, maybe also a flaw, but it's something that has purpose. And I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but it's just, I don't know. I don't know. Say something. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I got a little off track, but I know I'll get back there. I'll connect the dots soon.
It's okay. That's it. You're not a professional interviewer. You're a professional musician. Remember, we cleared that up.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're terrible at these things. So, we'll just wrap it up here. I'm just kidding. But and something also that's, directly kind of attached to, your project is that, project band, whatever you want to call it, is that, you definitely have fallen into this, what I would define as a very, devoted and passionate fan base, different than a lot of other bands, similar to what we were talking about earlier in regards to like your inspiring reaction. Like, people, for the most part, when they hear Deer Hunter, they're either super, super into it, or are just like, I don't care. Like, it's like, whatever. And
yeah, they can also dislike it strongly.
Right.
I don't think it's avant-garde in such a way that the average person who would dislike it would have a strong distaste for it, but it still does rub some people tremendously in the wrong way.
Sure.
Whether that's my voice or whether that's the grandiosity of some of the show tunesiest of moments.
Yeah, it's like, hey, let's calm down, Casey. Yeah, we get it, okay, dude. Yeah, sure.
But I think that actually connects the dots for me. Is that I think the people who would consider themselves fans of the Deer Hunter have that reaction that I'm talking about of yes, I am shooting for Venus. I can only hit the moon if I try my hardest. And they, though, listen to it, and I think they can see the trajectory that was aimed at Venus. And I think that they listening make those connections on their own a lot. And I know that still is abstract to say, but I think that's why we end up having a very strong but smaller fan base as a band, is because the people that it does appeal to, it does something very specific for them. And then for everybody else, it just doesn't hit really any marks, you know?
Sure. You honestly, it's like there is this, really cottage industry of what you have created. I mean, you've essentially created a small business and, well, not created, but you've been able to build this off of the back of your creative efforts. And, not every band can, obviously do that and then be able to still hold a certain level of relevance in regards to not only the touring industry, but then your continued pursuit to be able to put out, new music and not just be this pure nostalgia act or whatever. Do you kind of, do you enjoy the sort of business aspect of kind of putting this all together? Or is that one of those things where you're like, the farther away I am from it, the better?
I think I've always disliked it and tried to be as involved as I can. And I think it's taken me a long time to recognize how much I was unknowingly letting my dislike of the topic influence the way that I handled it. So at this point, I recognize that the best it could be is the further I can get away from it. And so over the last year, actually, I've been sort of periodically just parsing out responsibility and for lack of a better word, responsibilities and privileges. I've been sort of parting them out from myself to other people in the band and decision making and stylistic input for things like merch and stuff like that I recognize now don't necessarily matter to me and shouldn't become these sort of like a discussion about a t-shirt can turn into an argument in only a few steps that are very easy to fall into if you are representing yourself passionately enough, right? And I recognize that while I can have passionate perspectives on things like a t-shirt, it's not what I feel my time and my energy and my interests in art and creation are best spent. Like, if I can be working with somebody I truly trust, which is like our manager, Tim, and, the entire band, if I can step back in these things and in these like different facets of what a band is, supposed to do at this point, because you don't just make music. Like, I guess you never just made music, but the list is extremely long and what you can do and just call yourself a band at this point. The number of industries you can kind of like dip into, from merch to trucking, are vast.
Sure. Yep.
So I think at this point I just recognize that if I have an idea, like if I have a concept for a shirt that I want someone to try or I want to drum up, I usually, will shoot those off in a text or something like that. But anymore, when stuff is brought to me, it's just like, well, do you think this looks good? Okay, cool. Yeah. Or, like, do you guys want to be the ones who decide this? Or just trying to let go of more and more, because I recognize how much it I guess negatively influences what it is that I'm actually interested in doing, which is the creative part. And I don't mean just the fun of the creative part. Like, I mean down to the nitty gritty of the creative part, because I am engineering and editing and writing and producing everything here. And it's a good deal of work. Not that, I have to tell anybody, there's so many people who make all of their music, but it's a lot of work, and it's proven to be even a little bit more complicated now with everybody kind of broken off in different parts of the country, unable to get together at the moment to make a record. But God, I keep doing this. I talk so long that I forget what I'm talking about.
It's okay. That's welcome to podcasting, as you well know.
I think, but I was getting to the end of that thought. What were we talking about?
Oh, we were just talking about the conflict, or not the conflict, but the the impact of
Oh, right, of course.
creativity
Jesus,
in
I can't believe I
business.
forgot it. I just had a lapse. Yeah, I'm not saying that it can't be done. I think there's plenty of people who are just stellar geniuses at being everything, But I don't think I have strong qualities in terms of like marketing or merchandise or promotion or anything really beyond just the thing. I'm good at making the thing I want to make. And that's, I think, what I've just over time realized I want to focus on, because as time goes on, I realize there's just more and more things I want to make. And the more I consume myself with the business of making them, and the less I'm consumed with the creative part, the more I become, I guess, sort of, I resent the creative part, because it feels like I don't know. I guess it feels too muddied by the business stuff.
Sure.
And if I can just focus on that, and then then when it's done, it's just like, here it is, and here's this idea. Then I guess it's the concept behind an A&R person. It's like, I'll be the creative person. I don't know shit about promotion or publicity or anything like that. And you hold my hand like the little, child brain I am, and we'll figure it out together.
Totally. Yeah. We'll be able to. Yeah, there are people. I mean, it's usually that's why you see, kind of the division of labor in, bands and creative outlets at large, where it's just like, oh yeah, this person is good at this thing, so they're going to lean into their strengths. This person is good at this thing, and it's like, this person doesn't care about this, and so why should you try to force them into something that they just don't care about? And so yeah, you have to, you got to pick your spots, and only after, like you said, you're able to find these people that you trust to enlist their help, is when you can actually focus on the things that that you have, some reasonable talent at, rather than faking like you know what I'm good at? I'm good at like putting out records and selling 1 million copies. Okay, guys, just listen to me. The last thing I want to hit on was, something you mentioned earlier in regards to, being a father, because you have 2 kids, or do you have more than that? Am I?
No, just one right now, and then one on the way, due in December.
Got it. Bun in the oven. Well, congratulations.
Yes. Thank you.
So yeah, that impacts people's lives in the most quote unquote normal circumstances. And so, you, like you were mentioning earlier, kind of feeling selfish in certain respects about where you're spending your time and stuff like that. How, I guess being brought up in this sort of, really independent train of thought, music community that, we're a part of, and then also, existing in the quote unquote real world as well, and interacting with, people I affectionately call as civilians that have never been exposed to musical subcultures. How does all that kind of like, I guess, marinate in your head? Is it one of those things where you, just kind of try to focus on the spots that you are able to, be prolific and proficient at, and then kind of be like, oh, well, this is my normal life versus my, like artistic life or whatever? Like, how does that all kind of ping pong in your head?
Do you mean in such a way as, if I do, how do I compartmentalize my life?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Well, I was definitely worried about that before Rowan was born. There was this, like, I think it happens to anybody. I would assume it's got to happen to most people who don't have a career that is completely ironclad, who don't feel like they have tenure to some regard, or in some regard, in their field. There was this fear of like, okay, I guess I got to get my shit together and stop playing these little childish games as a musician. And I that went away very quick. It was a weird little moment in my life where, I mean, my response to that within my life was probably the biggest overreaction, because I went from this feeling like I was just playing dress up as a musician and as a creative person, and that I really had to get my shit together and figure out a way to support a child and provide a good role model. Like I got all those thoughts in my head of like, no, you have to have something more concrete, and you have to have this foundation in your life so that can be the role model for Rowan, and he doesn't necessarily think you can just go off and be a musician, or just do something creative. And then I kind of realized I was getting ahead of myself in making all of these assumptions as to the way that Rowan would react to eventually understanding what it was that I did for a living, and the way that I fit into the I don't want to say pantheon, it's not pantheon, but just like the types of people that do this. Like, it's a pretty wide ranging, it's an extremely wide ranging group of characters that make music in the world, from I guess, from the birth of rock until now, pop and rock. And so I just kind of, I got that out of my head in all of this worry. And the number one thing that got in my mind was just wanting to discover who he was, in the same way that but wanting to discover who Rowan is in the same way that my parents sort of let me discover myself, and then they discovered who I was through that. And then realizing all I really have to do is be as loving and supportive and attentive and thoughtful as I can be. And those are all things that I enjoy the feeling of, it's hard to say, like, I enjoy those things. It's no pain to me to be thoughtful or to be interested in what he's doing. So basically, that's just to say, like, there was a period of time where I was thinking of how can I compartmentalize these things about myself so that I can present the cleanest picture that does the best work for this child and leaves the least, residue from the mistakes that I have made and from the character flaws I think I might be too blind to ever really fix. I stopped thinking so much about myself and just thought, like, okay, well, he's not you. You don't have to instill those same worries about your own character into him and sort of lay out this foundation. You don't have to be looking. He doesn't naturally think the thing that you do you're not good at, or you shouldn't be doing. It's like I would just be putting those fears into him the more I thought about that and the more I concerned myself with it. So it just kind of flipped completely into this really vested interest in seeing how he evolves and what he gravitates towards. And if he becomes interested in music, like, there's nothing about my life that I'm ashamed of or wouldn't want to share with him. And there's no experience that I've, had that I wouldn't want to be straightforward if he ever asks me. And I don't know, it's weird. It's not weird. It's just weird given my experiences in life, but it's new. Sure. The level of transparency I feel, and like the level of love that I feel for him, and the way that it makes me both more interested in my own well-being and less interested in my own well-being at the same time.
Sure.
Is really interesting.
Well, I think
I stopped compartmentalizing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes total sense. I think it's one of those things where, because you have the, wherewithal and the perspective to be able to, kind of weigh your own experience versus, your limited child's experience. Like, those are two things that you have to kind of come to not only terms with, but grips with, like what you're talking about, where it's just like, okay, like, realistically, my job as a parent is to, make the child feel safe, make the child feel protected, all of these sort of, basic things. But a lot of people don't even put that much thought into it. But then on top of it, just being like, well, yes, I want to introduce them to a bunch of stuff. I want them to, gravitate towards the things that they care about. And then, I'm going to be that supportive person that's, kind of ushering them on, rather than trying to, model them out of clay into a likeness of myself.
I don't want to teach him the flaws. Like, I guess for a while, it just felt like, okay, it would take me teaching him everything that I thought was wrong with myself so that he would never have to deal with that. I think that's a weird way of saying the whole, like, I want better for you than for me, but from a more internal perspective. Like, I want you to be better than I am. So I think that's like I think that's a pretty natural thing where, and that's where I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made and that kind of thing. I had that in mind for a while, and I'm sure I might, revert back into that. But I guess if I could encapsulate it, it's that I'm not so interested in stopping him from making his own mistakes within reason as much as I thought I would be before I was a father. Thinking about, I just thought I would get to the point where I was going to micromanage every little thing. And the thing I'm trying my hardest to do is to let him fall when I feel like it's okay to fall, and to let him fuck up when I think it's okay to fuck up. And not, that still sounds like I'm micromanaging. I don't think about every single fall.
Right.
You kind of, you triage moments in real time. And it's like my threshold has gone down because I've realized, or it's gone up because I've realized I had to do like mental inventory on all of everything that I have done that is idiotic in my life, and then realize how integral those moments were and those lessons that being idiotic taught me firsthand, better than hearing from someone else. This is nothing revolutionary or anything like that, but just that finally made sense to me, the concept of allowing someone else to go through all of those things if they feel they need to, which is something that my parents did for me that I now in hindsight really, really appreciate, and that has rubbed off on me, and not so interested, in the same way. I basically just want to do what they did for me, for him, and provide a really inspiring space for him to discover whatever he wants to be or whoever he wants to be, and then nurture that as best as I can without letting my sort of knee-jerk, judgmental, aging side step in and think anything is, I don't know, too youthful.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, very, very eloquently put. So yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. Well, Casey, I could pick your brain for another hour, but like I said, we'll have to start a separate podcast for that. So, but thank you for hanging out, dude. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
That was Casey, and I very much appreciate him for appearing on the show. And thank you to his manager who reached out and set the whole thing up. So yes, I very much appreciate that. And next week, we have a great discussion. This is a best of 2005 chat. We are traveling back in time. Me and my good friends, Jeremy Bohm from Touche Amore and Joey Cahill from 6131 Records. We talk about our favorite records of 2005, which was a real fun chat. We had a little technical problems, but, I'll talk about that next week. But nothing that, should dissuade you from listening to next week's episode. So that's what we got next week. All right. Until then, be safe, everybody.
Ugh, I wish I owned a car. It'd make weekend day trips, seeing the fam, and last-minute errands so much easier.
You don't need to own a car for that.
Really?
Check out Zipcar. They let you book cars from your phone 24/7. It's super affordable because you only pay for the time you need, plus gas and maintenance are included.
Yeah, but bet it costs more in the long run.
Nope. Members save hundreds a month compared to car owners.
Okay, I'm checking them out.
Use the Zipcar app to book a car near you in minutes for a few hours or a weekend. Join instantly at zipcar.com. Zipcar. You don't need to own a car to have one.
What's the worst thing about sports? That's right, all those unnecessary breaks in play. But you can make them all better by using Grubhub. Grubhub has every food you can possibly crave, from national favorites to local spots. Grab your first order from the Grubhub app or visit Grubhub.com. That's Grubhub.com. And now Amazon Prime members get a year of Grubhub Plus for free. That's 0 food delivery fees from your favorite restaurants. Visit goforgrubhub.com/Amazon for terms and details. Go for Grubhub.
Hey, it's Chuck Wicks from Love Country Talk to Chuck, where we bring you what's really happening in the country music family. We also, if you love country, here's the deal. If you love country music, you can be on the podcast. So if you're a fan of country music, well, you can call in anytime. You'd be like, oh, I want to talk about this. Hulk Hogan called in. He's like, Chuck, the Hulkster, I love your podcast. Jason Aldean, Jimmy Allen, Carly Pierce, Lauren Elena, Listen to new episodes of Love Country Talk to Chuck every Monday and Thursday on the Nashville Podcast Network, available on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.